Hello, everyone. Welcome to Risk Roundup. Venture investing has the power to change the world. Since the investment today defines all emerging technology initiatives, investors influence not only the growth and development of an idea, innovation, business, industry, or a nation, but human society, its transformation, survival, security, and sustainability beyond all connected human domains of quantum space, cyberspace, aquaspace, geospace, and space. To discuss the trends defining the venture capital landscape, I am delighted to welcome one such venture capitalist, Bala Kamallakharan, to this roundup. Bala is the founding managing director at Iceland Venture Studio, a grassroots initiative to build a startup community in Iceland. Welcome, Bala. We are honored to have you on Risk Roundup.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So, Risk Group community and I look forward to your thoughts on trends in venture investing. Please, go ahead and share your thoughts.
Sure. Thank you. So it's a great platform, and happy to share what motivates what I do. I became an accidental investor. I mean, I've always thought that investor was somebody like Warren Buffett, and it so happened that I used to work for an Icelandic bank, and in 2008, the entire financial system in Iceland collapsed. And I was left without a job, and I looked around and said, maybe this is the time for me to make my own job. And in Iceland in 2009, 2010, the word investor was not viewed very positively, and it was quite a contrarian move to be an investor at that stage. But I just decided to do it. I started working with founders, and the last maybe about 12 to 15 years now, I've kind of learned by doing, what is the trends and how this world of venture and investing works. And I wasn't trained to be a venture capitalist. I didn't work for a venture firm. The first capital that I deployed, I actually borrowed from my family back in India, who took pity on me and said, here, take some money, do something with it. But if you lose it, don't bother coming back home. So I had to make it good. But as they say, when you put your heart and mind into it, things start working out. And the first team that I invested in was acquired by a NASDAQ-listed company. And the second company I invested was once again acquired by a NASDAQ-listed company. And for the past decade or so, I've had a string of hits. And it's again, everybody thinks that venture capital is a function of chance, and I don't believe that to be true. I think venture capital, people who have stood the test of time. I have a lot of my friends who are in the venture capital space who have become friends lately. I mean, I didn't know them before, but I got to know them in the last decade. And what is very poignant looking at them is that they're all very practitioners. That means they actually, live this world. They're not, sitting in their room and pushing buttons. They're actually very active people who work with the founders in building companies. And, that sounded very appealing to me. And I said, maybe that is what I had to do. And I learned doing it. And I encourage everybody who wants to, try this world to actually say, you know what, roll up the sleeve, work with founders, see what they're doing and see how you can help them really build a company and build a business. At the end of the day, that's how you really change the future, really, by the products that the companies make and the services and the service that they do to the community and the society that they go to. I happened to start in an unlikely place, which is Iceland. When I started, the venture community in Iceland was non-existent, actually. There was actually one venture capital company funded by the government of Iceland. And it was, to say the least, it was not very effective. Not because they didn't want to be effective. It just, didn't have all the right ingredients. And one of the things I wanted to do, and backed by some of the big investors like Brad Feld, who is the founder of Foundry Group out of Boulder, Colorado. And Brad is a very big voice in the venture space. He's written multiple books on how to be a venture capitalist. And one of the books he wrote was about how to build a startup community. And that kind of appealed to me. And I said, that's what I really want to do. I want to build a vibrant community in Iceland that actually looks at all collapses, like the financial collapse that we went through, and more recently, kind of like the COVID scenario. How does a community become resilient and kind of emerge stronger out of a crisis? And I mean, if you look back in time and you go down into the basics of it, usually it's small groups of people who identify the problem, they work on the problem, and they solve the problem for themselves and for the community. Thereby, they come out stronger. And it comes to your group's name, risk. Everybody looks at venture capital. Those who don't understand venture capital, they ask me, isn't it very risky? And I say, well, I thought that it was working for a bank was less risky in 2007, but 2008 proved me wrong. So, risk is life. I mean, unfortunately, there are various levels of risk in everything we do. When we get out of the door, when we wake up, there are risks associated with every action we take. But I think the important thing is to calculate risk with payoffs, and what is the payoff, and understand that when you fundamentally change direction of a community, a country, or the world, then the payoff is probably worth the risk. And I think that is why more prominent entrepreneurs like Elon Musk or Bill Gates or Steve Jobs are, really revered, because they change the direction of what humanity thinks is possible. And I think that power does rest in founders. And I know that there are a number of people who are working on some of the hard problems that we need to solve, and we as venture capitalists are just fortunate to work with these people. I mean, every day I'm inspired working with founders who really are working on really hard things. I just think that people don't give enough credit to those founders who are working on these things. I mean, you only read what's written in popular media, but what you don't see is the amount of hard work that goes into solving some of these hard problems. And I always say that, I'm fortunate to have landed on this job that I created for myself, because every day I'm inspired to see these people go and take on some of the big challenges, like solving diabetes, or finding a better way to build a battery that will allow us to rely on less fossil fuel, or reforest the entire globe so we can solve this climate change issue. And it is kind of a calling, as I say it. And then there's more to it, and I can, as I said before, talk forever about this, primarily because the future doesn't build itself, right? I mean, a future is a path that we envision to be possible, and there are those who not only believe it's possible, they actually work to build it. And I think that's how the future is made, and whatever may be a version of the future. The good thing is that, the future is not built yet, right? I mean, if we take a slice in time, and you and I are speaking right now, the future doesn't exist until we decide to say the next word. So in that regard, I do believe that all of us have the power to say, what kind of future do we want, and how do we build it, and how do we make that happen? And again, Very fortunate to be working with a bunch of people who not only just say the words, but are doing the action, building a team, building a product, building conversations, building communities, and engaging customers in actually saying, these things are possible and we can solve these problems, and here is a way we can do it. And I think that's how you mitigate risk as well. I mean, the risk of climate change, which is already upon us, the risk of inequality in access to resources. Poverty, global poverty. By the way, global poverty has been going down at a massive scale. And I do believe one of the big ways to solve that is through entrepreneurship. And again, the age old cliche, you give a man, you feed him for a day, and you teach a man how to fish, you feed him for life. And I think entrepreneurship is very similar. I mean, if you teach somebody how to create value by building things, then they don't have to rely on anybody. They don't have to rely on the government. They don't have to rely on anybody. They find a problem, they build solutions for that problem, and thereby create value for themselves and for the community. And I think that's a great place to be. And that's what was the motivation for me to start Startup Iceland, and that led to what I do now, which is Iceland Venture Studio, which is a very early stage, kind of a seed stage company, funding company, but we call it a studio because we work with founders. It's not just an investment firm, although we do invest, but we actually actively work with founders and help them build products, build teams, build customers, and build markets, because a lot of the solutions that we are working on, the markets don't exist yet. We just have to create those demand and build those products and make them happen. I'm happy to jump into some of the teams and talk about some of the problems if that gives some context to what I've just been saying. One of the teams that we have invested in is called Retina Risk. They actually prevent diabetic blindness. So it is an algorithm that was created by a bunch of doctors in Iceland, and that algorithm existed within the hospital system. What we did was we took that algorithm and made it into a simple app, built an API, so every diabetic anywhere in the world can actually use the algorithm and gauge for themselves if they have a risk of going blind because they're diabetic. And I believe that, this is something that we take for granted. We think that everybody has equal access to healthcare. But when you think about it, it really is not true. Not everybody has access to the same level of care that, say, some of the Western country population has. But if we can take some of these knowledge and algorithms that exist within the Western world and make it accessible through devices that everybody carries today, which is a smartphone, then you kind of are flattening the curve in terms of access to knowledge and care. And so that's what. The other solution that we've invested in is called Flow, which is a meditation application using virtual reality. A lot of people that we talk to say that, they all have heard good things about meditation. They're all positive about meditation, but they don't meditate. And I say, well, why don't you meditate? If you think it's so good, if you think it's the right thing to do, what stops you? And almost their answer is that, but it's so hard. It's so hard to do. And we said, is it really that hard to do? Is that a fact? So we started with that hypothesis, and I found a founder who actually thought that anybody can learn to meditate with just 4 minutes in virtual reality. And we said, okay, let's make that a product and try to see if we can get it in the hands of as many people as we can. And Flow enables that. We have a virtual reality platform that brings nature and music and guided meditation. Thereby, anybody who has struggled with meditation with just 4 minutes in the VR world, they actually learn how to do it. And then the trick is to repeat that and try to do it over and over again. And we think that the mental health problems that the pandemic has unleashed is gonna be a serious problem in the workplace in the coming decade. And we do believe that solutions like Flow and others in the world are needed to so people can manage their mental strength. And that's another team. And the third team we've invested in is a nanotechnology company. It's called Nano. They actually make nanomaterial that reduces the cost of making nanomaterials, so it can be used in batteries to make better batteries. I mean, what we're talking about is 10 times better batteries. So your iPhone will only need one charge for a whole month, or the size of the battery will be half the size of what it is today and give you twice the power. And we are able to unleash that kind of scale because our method of using our proprietary technology to make nanomaterials that go into the battery are 100 times smaller than any other method in the world. So the cross section of the structures is crystalline, and crystalline structures are a lot more solid. The reason why diamond is the hardest substance is because it's a crystal. And if you can make most material into crystalline form and do it at a nano scale, then you exponentially multiply the power of what it can do in terms of charge, like how much charge it can hold, how adhesive it is to the surface, and so on and so forth. So we just found a better way to make these materials at a very low cost. Thereby, it can bolt into any other battery manufacturer. So we don't have to change how we make batteries. We just change the raw material. So once you change the raw material, the exact same process can be used to make a 10 times better battery. And it's not just for battery. Our method can be used for polymers, for adhesives, for pharmaceuticals. Think of a world where you don't have to swallow a pill and you just have to maybe put a small patch on top of your skin. And by the way, because the material is at the nano scale, it can permeate your skin membrane and go into your body, and just targeted application rather than allowing the drug to go through your entire digestive system. The whole reason why the pharmaceutical industry has gotten a bad rep is because of all the side effects. The side effects is not because the drug is bad. It's just that it goes through a number of systems that it doesn't have to go through. And this is the only delivery mechanism that we know about, because we know that it actually works, but we think the side effects and the trade-offs are okay. But what if we change the whole structure of the drug, where it is a nanomaterial and it can literally permeate your skin and just go straight to the place where it's needed? We think that it fundamentally changes how we look at all of the things that we have now. And again, when you think about it, it's a hard problem, right? When you come and try to pitch this to some people and say, you know what, I'm going to blow your mind by saying that all the things you thought about drugs is no longer true. We can make it so that you don't have to have any side effects to take the drugs. And the world, obviously is probably not ready. So we just will have to work with those people who see the possibility and start experimenting and working with us on those tools and technologies. I have 8 more companies that we've invested in. I can go into all of them. I don't think that's going to really make any difference, other than to say that these kinds of things are possible today with existing technology today. We don't have to invent them. We know enough to put these technologies to use, whereby we can change the course of future.
Yes.
And that kind of is what motivates me in what I do.
No, that's wonderful. And you are absolutely right that this is an initiative to change the future, shape the future. And like you said, every one of us has new ideas that we can, utilize and to imagine the new worlds that we want to create. It doesn't matter where we are living, irrespective of country. We can create our own worlds. We have created cyberspace, we are creating quantum space, and we will be able to create many more, virtual worlds. And
Absolutely.
we can come up with new ways of fundamentally transforming our society. Now, I like all the initiatives that you talked about. The retina, the algorithm that you talked about. That's it's going. The application of that all over the world would be so useful. We can prevent so much blindness if we are able to. All the countries are able to work together to create that basic healthcare
Right.
based on
Yeah.
the AI that we are developing, so that everyone can benefit. Now, there again, the geopolitics comes into play, and there are many complex challenges we have to overcome for all the innovators, all such healthcare applications to come together to work and create a huge global platform to
Yeah.
give the world the benefit of the basic healthcare. That is a whole
Right.
different story, but it is possible to do that now. So your investment, that is very timely and very necessary, and I'm glad that you did that. The flow meditation, yes, you're absolutely right. The mental health challenges, we need something, a support structure like that, where we can get the grounding that we need to overcome the what we have developed in this last year, and probably we don't know when it's going to end. So that is again very good investment. The nanotechnology one, it's absolutely uh, marvelous investment, not only for the battery sector, but like you said, for the pharmaceutical drugs, and there are many industry applications.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but there again, the self-replicating nanomachines, we will have to figure out how to solve that problem, because if we cannot control self-replicating nanomachines, then it can take
Mm.
up the entire universe, and we will have a huge existential risk
Right.
for our
Right.
entire
I
civilization.
mean,
So that,
the challenges of technology is always a double-edged sword, right?
yes, yes,
That's when the human morality and understanding the human need and empathy in building these things
yes,
with the human in the center of it is important. I think we cannot forget that the whole reason we are inventing these technologies is to make humanity better, not for
yes,
technology for
exactly.
technology's sake. Most of it is to make the human lives better and across the globe. I mean, I think what is important, I'm from India. I live in Iceland. I've lived in the U.S. I've traveled all over the globe, and I can say that future is already here in a lot of places, but it's very unevenly distributed, right? I mean,
Yes,
the same kind of access, the same kind of things that we take for granted are probably not accessible to a lot of people. And if we just raised that barrier, you know, I think trillions of dollars of value will be created. And by the way, value creation is a function of value captured, right? Somebody is actually deriving the value. That's why the value capture itself is possible. So I am pretty excited about this aspect of it because no point in time have we had the cost of starting a solution as cheap as today. You
mm,
know, the cost of computing, the way it has gone down, the cost of sensors, the way it has gone down, has fundamentally transformed a number of things that we thought were just impossible to do.
yes,
Most of these decisions used to be economically driven. I don't believe that to be true anymore because a lot of these things are just now a function of you know, expression. It basically comes down to, what problems do you think are high in your priority list, and you can solve them if you want to devote your effort to it. And I think that is quite world changing if you think about it. No point in
yes,
time has there been anybody, I mean, anywhere in the world today, because of the internet, can build things of value.
yes,
uh, and the case in point is in the world of cryptocurrency and what's going on with decentralization of money. I mean, for all the, as I've said before, there's plenty of headlines around cryptocurrencies, and I'm not going to go into that. but I do believe that the foundations of what it has been built on is fantastic. It is just amazing, and uh, if it even becomes, I don't know, 10% true, I think it will fundamentally transform the lives of many people.
Yes.
I'm not talking about those who are investors. I'm talking about those who are users of this technology. I mean,
Yes.
money when it becomes digital, and when money becomes smart, and when money can make decisions based on rules and controls that we can build on, it totally eliminates bias.
Yes.
I can talk openly about this. Today the banking system, if you really think about it, is run by machines, but end of the day it is controlled by humans. And humans, we have tremendous bias. When somebody shows up, and I'll just talk about an example in Iceland. I mean, in Iceland, if somebody shows up looking like me, and by the way, I'm an Icelander now, and I'm well known, so it wouldn't be that big of a problem. But in the year 2000, when I first came here, if I walked into a bank and I asked for a loan, there is no way in hell I would have gotten a loan, irrespective of my credit history or anything like that. Because the way that credit decisions are made is based on your name. They
Mm.
ask you, what's your name? And in Iceland, through the name, they can actually look at your entire family history. And if your family history, you're somebody's son, and if somebody is known, then you get the loan.
Mm.
It had nothing to do with your capacity to
Capabilities.
pay the money back or not. So, these kinds of biases exist in all countries. I'm just using Iceland as an example. I mean, in India, it's the same. If we change the rules of the game and made money self decision making, by the way, it just looks at your data, looks at your behavior, and sees if you have the capacity to pay, and then you basically get the loan. Then it would fundamentally change access to credit. So we've actually invested in a company in India which is called eCosh Finance, which does peer-to-peer lending that way, where no human is involved in the decision making for the micro businesses in India. So I mean, if you think about all the dukanwalas and all the street corner workers, they don't have access to banking. They don't have a bank. They don't have a working capital. You know, and with leverage, you actually make businesses a lot more resilient. And the COVID has shown that number of these businesses just became moot when when the world stopped because of COVID. But all those people behind those businesses, they still exist. How are they going to feed themselves? How are they going to run themselves?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is where, a technology can play fundamentally a big role. I mean, if they had access to something like eCosh, by the way, they could have access to lending and credit. Thereby, they could have gone into furlong where they could still pay themselves, keep themselves going, where the business took a credit risk, and when COVID stopped, they would repay those loans and continue to build the business.
Yes.
So these things are all. I think it's a very exciting time for most of us, and I'm in the line of work I have to be an optimist. I'm not that big of a pessimist. I usually think that pessimists are kind of self-fulfilling. If you're pessimistic about the world, why bother doing
Why
anything,
bother?
right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. No,
So,
I think
but I don't. Yeah, go ahead.
yes. No, I said you made the excellent point about this, that the democratization of innovation that we see everywhere in the world. It's fascinating, the nature of the problems that we can solve. But the point all that also you made is that, getting a loan and, all those challenges that comes for any innovators. There is no shortage of ideas. There is no shortage of innovation or imagination. But
Mhm.
the systems that are in place, they create complex challenges for in every country. So
Yeah.
irrespective of whether it's India or Iceland, whether that atmosphere exists for the startup community or the innovators, the support structure that they need to take the concept to commercialization is a complex challenge. So everyone has to, go through so many barriers and overcome so many challenges like
Yeah.
you also did, So
Yeah.
do you see that? the venture world, I mean, you know more than me in this, that it's all about numbers, right? And while competition drives this sector, the need to solve risk facing humanity, if we speak, in a broad term, what, we are focused on, risk facing humanity requires collaboration. It is not some problem that one individual or one institution or one investor can solve on its own. There needs to be a collaboration, coalition of many many investors, to solve big problems. So but as we see across nations, many societal issues are addressed in silos, and much of the investments are also made in silos. There are sometimes, a few investors, they get together and invest in some healthcare startup or things like that. But mostly they are still working in silos. So startups, they emerge locally, and investments are also broadly happening locally. So do you see a need for a change in investment approach to focus more on building coalition and focusing on our collective security, irrespective of whether it's healthcare security, financial security, or security of our species?
Sure. I mean, the world is connected, and I can say that. I mean, when you go down the scale of investment, you see that it does become a collaborative effort. So, I started with one investor who liked what I was doing, and he backed me, and now I have 25 big investors who are behind the fund that I manage. So it is a collaborative effort. I mean, there is a governance structure, there is processes behind how we do things, but I mean, at a massive global scale, collaboration does happen. I mean, if anything, I mean, the vaccine, although we had all kinds of hiccups around it, it was globally very collaborative effort, where the rollouts and a number of access to the vaccines are done in a much more open way rather than in a closed way. Again, we can obviously always do better. I'm not even saying that that there's no room for improvement. My view is that I think we've come a long way, and I think we will continue to evolve and learn. And I mean, the internet was supposed to be a collaborative effort, and the internet is a collaborative effort. Otherwise, it wouldn't work, right? I mean, if I choose to do my own protocol, then I can't communicate with you. I'll have to
Yes.
somehow find a way to communicate with you, and that's why we have standardized mechanisms. Although businesses built on top of the internet are competitive, the underlying standards are pretty universal. I mean, every company uses the same standard to build things on top of the internet. So it is a collaborative effort. So there are places where we are collaborating. I'm sure we can collaborate more, and we can do things better. But all that being said, I mean, there is also the other aspect of it, which is um, I mean, I work with early stage companies at a very early stage, and I constantly encourage founders and mentors and founders I work with to not worry about competition. Because if you are thinking about what your competitor is doing, then you're not working on solving your customer's problem. You're worried about your customer. You should be worried about your customer. You should be worried about your customer's problem and trying to figure out a unique way to solve that problem. And therein lies the value creation, the unique value creation that comes from that exercise. I think once you get bigger, once you get scale, unfortunately, we tend to forget what really made you unique, and then you start competing with the next big player. I think that's actually a bad model. I think it's not a very good model. I think there are plenty of problems to be solved. Why should we fight to solve the same problem? I
Yes.
think
Yes.
my bigger view is that if you really work hard in solving a very good problem, and you do it in a very unique way, customers are more than happy to pay you to solve that problem all the time. So competition and collaboration doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, but it
Yes.
just needs to be thought in a different mindset, as I say. But that being said, when you start capturing value, we tend to forget why we started doing it in the first place.
Yes, yes, but again,
Yeah.
we there is a hope because as we decentralize more, and if as we start using these
Hmm.
decentralized platforms that are in
Hmm.
work, and everything goes on blockchain, then that communication, that collaboration, and all that will become much easier because we will be able to see what is going on on which network node and what is happening all over the world. So things will get much easier as we decentralize more and as we put together effective systems and structures that are necessary right now. That invisibility is there in who is working on what and which country is focused on what problems they're trying to solve. So every country has different skill set, different capabilities, different infrastructure. So that is where we need to first understand what each country is strong in, where their risks are, and where they can their skill sets are,
Yeah.
and what kind of resources they need to focus on to helping the innovators and helping the startup community to come up with what is necessary in terms of the support system that they need. So as if we talk about Iceland, what industries do you see are emerging that would benefit the entire world? It's not just applications that innovators are working on, or some new ideas that they are investing, but overall, where do you see Iceland's strength, and where do you see the gaps that we need to focus on to overcome
Sure.
those challenges so that they can
Yeah.
transform going
Sure.
forward?
I mean, what I do is not limited to Iceland. Iceland is a very small place, so a startup just for Iceland doesn't make any sense. So what we try to do is that we are location agnostic, but there are some inherent strengths of being in Iceland, so we try to put that to work with the founders that we work with.
Mm.
Iceland as a country has fundamentally transformed in the last decade. And again, based on the work that I've done with Startup Iceland and the effort we put into bringing the startup community way of thinking, has fundamentally transformed the place. Today, we have 5 privately funded venture companies locally, and they're the first vintage of companies are all growing up to be unicorns now, and the government has just put massive effort into investing in technology and things that will be needed in the future. And I think every country needs to do that. I don't believe that it is something that one country is going to do and others are not going to do. I think everybody should do it. And I mean, there is no limit to what can be done from a place like Iceland. Iceland is endowed with unlimited power. I mean, Iceland is powered by renewable energy. We have plenty of geothermal, and we just have an active volcano now. So that volcano is nothing but energy.
Yes.
So it is energy coming out of the ground, and Iceland has learned how to harness that energy to be utilized in other things. One of the most exciting things that I am seeing in Iceland is agriculture. I think Icelanders always had imported all their food. There is a burgeoning industry with agriculture starting to form in Iceland, where we are using the latest technologies to actually grow food in the most uninhabitable place in the world. Iceland is notorious for its weather. It is pretty bad and it's cold and almost mimics space.
Mm.
And if we can grow things here, then we can grow it in space, right? So that has created a lot of very interesting solutions. One of the companies in Iceland is doing vertical farming, where it is growing food in a dark room with LED lights and hydroponics, and they are already in the markets, and you can buy all the vegetables and fruits grown by them, which is exciting to see. And again, if you do that for a certain group of food, you can do it for all groups of food. And I mean, biotechnology is something that is really exciting in Iceland. There's a company that is has been importing a lot of talented people from India into Iceland to actually build biomanufacturing facilities to make drugs, biosimilar drugs that are accessible for the rest of the world. I mean, taking stabs at all these big pharmaceutical companies that have huge patents on drugs to make biosimilars using technology. Uh,
Great. Great.
yeah, so it is a very vibrant place now for startups and entrepreneurship, and I think the entire country has, as I say, has drank the Kool-Aid now, and it feels like 2009 is 100 years back.
Yes.
It feels like a totally different world that I live in.
Yes, it's
Because
very
when I
true.
go and talk to people about what we're doing, I think there is acceptance, amazement, and the next question is, how can we help and what can we do to make this happen here in Iceland,
Yes.
which is always great.
Yes, it's always great. So, what would you like to tell our global viewers and listeners, especially those brilliant young minds who are innovating?
Yeah, I would say don't wait, start somewhere, and a very popular investor once told me that the best time to plant a tree was 40 years back, and the next best time is always today.
Yes.
Always today. So never wait to work on things that you care about, and don't make it somebody else's problem. If you make it your problem, then you can actually do something about it, and you can actually work on it, and you can build things to solve those problems. And hopefully, you create plenty of value for all your customers and all your stakeholders, and for yourself. And again, it's not the end, but it's more of a means. And once you have plenty of resources, that is money and wealth and all that, then you can go and solve other problems, bigger problems.
Yes, yes, that is very true. So, thank you so much, Bala, for participating in this roundup today. We appreciate your thoughtful insight on trends in venture investing and all the investments that you have made and the journey that has showed not just in books or but actually that you lived, you overcame all those challenges. That would be an inspiration to a lot of people, and our global viewers and listeners would benefit tremendously from that understanding that you provided on the state of Iceland startup, the challenges that we as individuals we have to overcome, and the investment trends. As a result, this risk roundup dialogue has been of service, and we thank you for that.
Thank you very much for having me, and good luck to all the people who are watching your
Well,
program.
thank you so much. So, Risk Group is a strategic security risk research platform and community through the Risk Roundup initiative. Risk Group and I are on a mission to talk with a brilliant minds. And the reason behind this effort is to research, review, rate, and report strategic security risk facing humanity. Thank you for being part of the conversation. Until next time, I'm Jayashree, host of Risk Roundup, signing off. See you next time. Thank you.